All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning into the Sports Card Therapist, where I give you a behind the scenes look at my hobby hustle and sprinkling some self care and wellness on top of that. I'm Rob Gerard, your Sports Card Therapist. And whether if you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, or watching on YouTube Live, welcome to the podcast. And this is episode 190 right here, 190. And I've been excited about this episode. Today's episode is called Who is to Blame for the Market? And I have the man that inspired this topic tonight. I have Kevin on Instagram. He is the Captain 37. Kevin, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. I appreciate having me on. And 190, that's pretty impressive. That's awesome.
190. I can't even, like, I don't even, I don't even know what to say when I think about that high of a number. I'm like,
yeah,
geez.
That's awesome. So, Rob, real quick, my kid overheard me talking about coming on the show, and I was going to be on YouTube, and he went nuts. He's 6 years old. He watches all YouTube videos and stuff like that. So I just want to give Grayson a quick shout out and say, hey, buddy, he said he wanted to watch it in the morning. So I wanted to get that out of the way quick. So probably watch 2 minutes of it, then get bored. So, I wanted to give him a shout out.
That's awesome. Shout out to Grayson. Grayson, you are the man. Your dad is super cool. So you're lucky to have a cool dad like that. But Grayson, keep killing it, man. So definitely looking forward to tonight's episode. So before we even jump into it, National 4 weeks away from the time of recording this. In 4 weeks, we are going to be there. Your face just lit up when I said that. My
completely
face,
lit up, right?
Oh my God, my face. I've been ecstatic just thinking about it. So, tell me a little bit about your past national experiences, and tell me a little bit about what you're looking forward to this time around in Rosemont, Illinois.
Yeah, so this is I'd have to go back and look. I think it's my 13th straight going, and I'm about half and half at this point in terms of being a walker and setting up as a dealer. So I think I have a pretty good perspective on what it's like from both angles, which is why in a couple of weeks I'll be doing my normal national do's and don'ts live from a walker and dealer perspective. But I just the anticipation for this show is just unreal. And you hear a lot, and we'll talk about the state of the market and things like that. We'll look where the market is. How's the show going to be? I mean, there were rumblings about the market going down before last national, if you recall, and the show was insane. It was the best show I ever had by far. I'm not saying this is going to be my best national ever, but the anticipation, literally every show I've gone to over the past 2 months, I probably had between 10 to 15 national conversations with people. So the hype is real. They said that they expected to run, they already ran out of Super VIP months ago. They said they expected to run out of VIP tickets today. The room's bigger. I think they said it's 35% bigger, which blows my mind. Some people, I've heard some people saying that this is their first national, and man, they're walking into a hornet's nest, so to speak, in terms of, hey, if you don't have a plan, you're going to be overwhelmed. So I'll talk a lot about that, but I'm just super excited, man. We're going to start heavily promoting it. Probably after 4th of July. I'm going on vacation next week, but I'll be set up in booths 3006 and 2907 with MC Sports Cards and Matt Sports Cards and MC's team. So I'm super, super excited about it. And like you said, my face lit up as soon as you mentioned it. So I could talk national all freaking day, man. So I just can't wait to be in a room for 10 hours a day, sipping on some cocktails and then doing some card deals. So I'm pumped up.
Yeah, man, definitely. And I'm, just hearing you talk about it, I'm like, yes. So when I went last year, comparing it to the year before with Rosemont, I think Rosemont, Illinois it just built differently. I mean, this place is the spot. I do like the idea of national moving around, right? Like bouncing around, the country. But I mean, if they announced next month that it was going to remain in Rosemont, Illinois forever, I would not be upset.
Yeah, and you're talking to somebody from the East Coast who, it being in Atlantic City, was super easy for me last year. I could drive to it. It's like a 5.5 hour drive. I could bring more stuff, but I would be completely on board with it being in Chicago permanently. It's a centralized location. It's an airport that has a ton of direct flights. I'm actually going to drive with a couple of buddies, my buddy Jay and George. We're going to make a road trip out of it. But in terms of flying, there's a smaller airport in Providence that's super easy to fly out of. I can get a direct flight to Chicago, where I really can't do that for other shows. Like when I go to Dallas or go to India, I got to fly to Boston, which is just a total pain in the ass. So, and then, you look at the airport is 10 minutes from the venue. There's a great strip of hotels there. The food is unbelievable. I'm just thinking about Gibson's and Carmine's. By the way, Gibson's, I'm sure you've been to, but Carmine's Italian in Rosemont is absolutely unbelievable. I got that booked twice. I got 2 reservations to that. So me being Italian, it's the best Italian food I've ever eaten, and that's saying something. So put that in your list to go to.
It's crazy you say that because me and the Wolfpack members, we already booked Gibson's for, I believe, Thursday night. I think we might hit Card Collector 2 trade night for, a couple minutes in the beginning, maybe, but I know our reservations basically for like 7 or 8 that night, so
I'm glad you said something about trade nights, just a quick harp on that. So I saw you post about yours on Friday night, which is awesome. You guys are hosting one, right?
Yeah. Thank you. Yep.
Little plug for that. You just posted. I literally just saw that before I came on. So that's awesome. But people often ask me why I don't go to trade nights, and I just want to make it clear. I have nothing against trade nights. I think trade nights are awesome, but I'm on my feet for 10 hours during the day doing deals. It's nonstop. I am done with cards by the time I get out of the show from a dealer standpoint. So it's nothing against trade nights. I very much support trade nights. It's just you're not going to see me at any of them because once the show is over, I need to hit the reset button a little bit. Go back to the hotel room, get some work done, price new cards, things like that, and then have social plans at night. So but I think it's awesome that you're hosting one. That the CC2 one has been the epicenter of trade nights for a while now. So they do a great job promoting that, and just the pictures from those rooms, and it's amazing to me the amount of people that attend these things and the deals to go down. And I talk to people the next day, hey, I got more deals done at trade nights than I did during the show, which is awesome to hear. So it's just, it's if you're a card person, you love the hobby, this is the week of the year. I'm like a little kid, the night before Christmas, before this thing starts. So I can't wait, man.
Yeah. And so at the time of recording this, it's, June 28th. So I told myself this weekend, so first weekend of July, I have to start with my prep for national, because same thing as you. I'm setting up there, second year in a row setting up at national, and I think you have to be prepared going there. And I saw that you were actually looking into some of your inventory that you had built, right? I know you have a Peyton Manning PC, you have a Tom Brady PC, but you've actually been going through that and figuring out, hey, what am I willing to move and what am I not, right?
Yeah, so what I do pretty much every year around this time, I do what I call the PC purge. So, first of all, it's fun to just sit down with your PC for, I spent 10 hours with Peyton. I've already spent 10 hours with Brady. My Brady collection is bigger than my Peyton collection now. So I still got a couple more days that, but it's fun to go through your collection, just look at everything first off. And I keep a pretty detailed inventory now of both my PC and the stuff that I'm wheeling and dealing, just because I'm doing it full time now. So I want to go back and reassess value and see how things have changed and whether they've gone up or down, whatever. But then it gets to a point where I'm like, all right, what can I afford to give up, right? And I think this is a great idea for people to do, not just from a dealer perspective, but if you're going to walk the show, do a PC purge, right? Go through your collection. And I'll give Jordan Northwood Collector a big shout out here, because he talks about this a lot in our Peyton chat, how he keeps a running list. He ranks like his top, I don't know if he says 20 or 25 Peyton cards, right? So if a grail pops up, he knows the stuff that he can afford to give up to kind of either sell or use as trade chips toward this card. I think that's a great idea for anybody to do before the national. If you're going, always go with some ammo. Cash is king, obviously, and I'll talk a lot about that and in the nature of deals and stuff at the national when I go live and on my Instagram page. But going with ammo is a great idea. And you're going to see stuff at the national that is only, I'm going to say probably 25% of my inventory is going to be stuff that sees the light of day once a year. That's for this show. So think about that, right? So you may come across something that you never thought you'd have a chance to obtain. And if you don't have an idea of, okay, I know I can part with this, and this, my PC, I don't want to part with this. Like, you could be in a situation where you're in a tough spot to obtain that card. So, I think a PC purge is a good thing for everybody to do yearly, especially if you go into the Nationals. It's a great time to do it. But I'm going to be breaking out some pieces that, I didn't think I'd move necessarily, but it just made sense in terms of, all right, this is the stuff that I really can't part with. This is the stuff that I kind of can part with. And this is the stuff I know I can part with. So it's been fun to go through some difficult decisions. a couple tears have been shed in terms of putting some cards in the for sale box, but that's the nature of it now.
Yeah, and so I'm curious, right? Because you're looking through your Peyton Manning stuff, you're looking through your Tom Brady stuff, and you have some absolute big boys. I've seen your stuff. I've gone on your Flickr account. I've kind of perused, looked around, and you have some absolute monsters. So
Thanks, man.
this kind of and so this kind of leads us into what the topic is. When you look at some of these cards, right? And obviously it's a market, right? Cards, it's a market. They go up, they go down. A lot of people compare it to, stocks, which I think, even though they are different, right? There's a lot of differences. I think when you look at the market, I think there's a lot of similarities there. So
sure.
when it's hard when we have a card that we've owned for, say, 2 years or more, right? 2 years or more. And we can look at a card and, I'll speak for myself. I can look at a card, and as much as I love that card, I know what the value was of it at the peak, right? So, so when I look at a card, I'm like, yeah, that was a 48K card back in January 21 or whatever the date is, and now you go to look at some of these cards, even like, so you go to look at some of these cards and they went from, say, 48K. Now some of them are down to 15K, right? And especially if you're into a card, say for, cash and trade of maybe a 35 value, right? I'm kind of curious, like, how do you take those kind of things into account, or do you just completely go with the market and you have to have a short memory? What do you do from your perspective?
So, first off, going through my PC, I lowered plenty of cards based on the current market, right? And yeah, it sucks. I get it. But like at the same time, I'm a long-term player on a lot of my PC stuff, right? So, things are going to have ebbs and flows, right? I don't know if we're going to see the ebb up high like we did before during COVID, but I'm not sitting here hitting the panic button like many people have in the hobby, which I'll get to in a minute. But, prime example, I have 2014 Tom Brady flawless 4-color patch auto, his first year flawless on card, game used patch auto, 9/5/10.
Ooh,
I had 3 of them.
Don't just fly by that real quick. You have a 2014 flawless,
it's my baby,
4-color patch auto.
Yep.
In a BGS 9.5 auto grade 10.
I do. Yeah. So I had 3 of them. So wow. I sold 2. I had a BGS 9/10. Then I had another 9/5/10. I sold 2 of them. I wouldn't say during peak, but we bought our dream house 2 years ago. Normally you see the man cave in the backdrop, but I'm having some internet issues downstairs, so I'm in the dining room right now. But I sold those to fund the man cave. And it was great. I was able to use that, cardboard to turn into awesome real life stuff, which was great. But I said to myself, I want to keep one long term. That's probably a 40 to 50K card now. I mean, I was offered 100K cash for the card and I turned it down. So there's a great example of where the market was and where it is now. I was actually thinking about this specific card before I came on tonight and thinking, how much do I regret that? And, there's some regret. I can't lie, right? But at the same time, like, that's my baby. That's one that I wanted to hold long term. I think there's a lot of similarities between that and the big basketball limited logos cards, some exquisite, because Tom Brady doesn't have any exquisite patch autos there. So, I think that I'm holding that card for 10, 15 years, and I think that eventually it can get back up to where it was. So that's the way I'm playing it. So there were plenty of cards that I could have sold during peak and done very well with. I chose to sell some stuff and keep some other stuff because, this is paying the bills now. I'm a full-time dealer, right? I gave up teaching, but I'm still very much a collector at heart, which is why, I don't always look at cards from a money standpoint. I look at, hey, listen, I think this is a good investment long-term. I love the card. I love the player. So, doing my PC purge is still stuff that I'm very much confident in long-term, despite how much it's dropped. I mean, you just heard I got offered 100K cash for a card that is now worth 40 to 50K, right? But I'm still a believer in that card long-term. But, the market, it's definitely in a very different spot than it was last year. Things are very down overall. But at the same time, like, I think it's very important to separate conversations about the market being down and the hobby being down. I think it's 2 very, very different things. And this goes back to my comment I made to you. We talked through IG the other day. I won't drop the F-bomb here that I dropped when we were talking, but I'm so sick and tired of seeing these charts and graphs of everything's down and blah, blah, blah. It's like, give it a rest, man, because the hobby is still in a good spot. And I've seen it firsthand because I look at the hobby in terms of interest and pulse at card shows, like real life stuff in person, right? And I really, people might think I'm inflating stuff, but I'm not. Like the shows have been unbelievable this year. And it was like once Christmas ended, the new year started, a switch was flipped. And, I went to the Foxwood show. I went to the Mohegan Sun show. I've been to Dallas. I've been to the Chicago Sports Spectacular. I just got back from the Midwest Monster, the Shriners show in the Boston area, my local show, Dedham, Massachusetts. I mean, I went to the Flippin' Card show in Woburn. So I don't know if I'm saying that right. It's Woburn or Woburn. I have no idea. But a couple weeks ago, and I went in a buying spree there. The place was packed. I was shoulder to shoulder with people. Like, shows are unbelievable. The interest is there. And I really think what you're seeing now is where the market is. People are much less hesitant right now to buy and make a move on cards because I can from a Brady standpoint. I usually have 3 rows of Brady rookies in my showcase, and I'm down to 1. Brady rookies have been flying for me because I think right now they're at a price point where people are like, all right, they're low enough. It's time to get in. I had a great conversation with a guy at the last local show I did. He's like, I sold a handful of his rookies at super peak and did really well. Now I think it's time to get back and I want to make some moves now because of just with the gap where things were and where they are now. But the hobby is in a great spot. I was just out in Indianapolis and I spent some time with Andy from Indy Card Exchange at his card shop. And what I loved about that was the amount of kids I saw walk through the door. So I think that the more kids are involved, it's a great place. If you're holding cards long term, you want kids to be involved because, listen, if our stuff's going to be worth something 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the line, it's these kids we need in the hobby, right, when they become adults. So from what I've seen, the hobby right now is hot. The market, it's a totally different story, right? But what you're starting to see now and what I'm seeing, and I don't know if you notice this too, Rob, but I guess it also depends on who you follow and who you interact with on Instagram, but it's like it's the same shit being put up for sale over and over again. Like, for example, my feed is cluttered daily with young quarterbacks for sale and for trade. Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, those type of guys, which is fine, right?
Burrow is almost a veteran when it comes to some of these younger flippers.
Right?
But, I'm not even seeing as much Burrow anymore, or even Mahomes, right? It's these guys.
It's Lawrence. It's still Herbert. It's Justin Fields. I love the little hand going right now. This is hilarious, right? I was there, brother. I get it, man. Yeah, but it's and the stuff that walks up to my table, it shows it's all the young quarterbacks. It's modern baseball stuff. I would say over the past 2 or 3 months, I haven't had any good Brady stuff walk up to me. I haven't had any good vintage stuff walk up to me. I haven't any good like MJ stuff walk up to me. It's all the same stuff, right? So, with that being said, like that stuff, the prospects kind of drive things, right? The market, right? But at the same time, I think that a lot of people I've talked to, I'm not going to say smarter people, but I think there's an opportunity right now to get in some of those good cards of the Hall of Famers and the veterans and the GOATs like Brady, like Jordan, areas like that, and feel comfortable with the price point that they're at. Now, listen, I have plenty of young quarterback stuff in my inventory that I'm going to look to sell at the National. I'm not hiding that, right? My only advice to people, and I said this the other day on my story, for every $1,000 you're going to spend prospecting, right? Put like 200 or 300 of it into something safer, right? Just so you kind of hedge. I'm a big bet hedger, right? Just so you kind of hedge a little bit, because it's like all I'm seeing right now is young prospect stuff turning and flipping, and it's moving. It's like crazy. I can't keep enough of it in stock, right? But at the same time, like I wonder. I guess this is a question. This might be a whole other podcast episode or YouTube episode, but like, how many true Justin Herbert collectors are there out there? How many true Trevor Lawrence collectors are there out there, right? I know there's a ton of Peyton Manning collectors. I know there's a ton of Tom Brady collectors. I know there's a ton of Michael Jordan collectors, right? True collectors. Like, I wonder how many of these, people are buying this stuff to actually, who's going to be caught with the bag for these young guys, right? That's the question. Right. So
well, and that's a good point, because I think when it comes to Justin Herbert, it's been a lot of flippers and investors, and a lot of San Diego or Charger fans that I've talked to. They've talked about how. Sorry, my son's
listen, man. It's all good. It's all good.
So Charger fans are like, I can't even afford Herbert card, so I'm not going to buy Herbert card. So you have a lot of his own team, team base
Crazy,
fan base,
right?
they're not even buying them.
Yep. Whereas I can rattle off literally 30 people who I know are collecting Brady in a long term. But with that being said, right, like, and this goes back to the whole, title of the episode, who's to blame for the market, right? Like, we're partially blamed to the market, right? Like, I know people who just hit the panic button tremendously when the market started to fall, right? And I never thought I'd see people panic sell Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time. But I know people who have completely liquidated their Tom Brady collections because they panicked, right? So the panic selling aspect completely blows my mind, right? Like there was a lot of fear when stuff started to shoot down after COVID, and if things came back to earth, and just a lot of panic selling. So like, who's to blame for the market? I mean, we're kind of to blame for the market, right? Anybody who panic sold and just didn't care, and stuff was being, the supply was way outweighing the demand, and that was part of the issue, right? And you also have the other part here, which was a big issue, is this whole loans against cards thing. And I don't know how much, you've talked about that, on your podcast and YouTube channel, but that the whole taking loans against your cards on the surface looked like a cool idea, right? The fact that, hey, I can submit $100K worth of cards to so-and-so's vault, and now I can borrow $40K against it and go buy some cards or use it for real life stuff. On the surface, it looked great, right? But just didn't seem like there was a lot of foresight in terms of, hey, if the market starts to fall, what's going to happen, right? So the market completely plummeted. You got people who it's time to pay the loans and they're not going to do it. And then, these auction houses have no choice but to auction their cards, right? And the market's just completely flooded. So like, a couple prime examples for me, there were a couple Brady cards in particular that hadn't sold publicly in 2 to 3 years. And all of a sudden they're thrown in a weekly auction somewhere. And I'm like, oh my God, like what is going on, right? But it's people who, it's time to pay up on the loans, and, they don't want to do it or they can't do it. So it's time to auction those cards, and the market just got completely flooded. So, I mean, I look at who's to blame for the market. That's a huge part of it in my eyes, especially that super high end market. I've never dabbled in that. I mean, yeah, I got a big Brady card, right? But I'm into that thing so cheap. Like I wouldn't be affording that card today. I got a lot of cards now that like people think, oh man, he buys like, super high end cards. I got into these cards a long time ago. So like, I'm not sitting here with a massive bankroll to be able to spend 50, 60K in a card, right? But those people who dabbled in that super high end game, and took loans out to buy more high end cards, man, they're getting killed, and it's sad to see. But at the same time, it seems like everything was built in the house of cards, and we know that where that ends up, sooner rather than later, unfortunately.
Yeah, and you bring up some good points, and what's crazy is so you could get just a couple super high-end cards, right? Big money cards, right? 5, 6, 7-figure cards. And if they show up just a couple times, but multiple times, whereas before they were never showing up and their values just start to plummet, what that does is you can have just a few cards drag down a massive chunk of the higher end index, right? When you look at the index using Card Ladder, so people start to see like higher end cards are plummeting, and it's really because of a handful of super expensive cards, and then in turn everything kind of starts to follow suit because of that panic selling, like you're saying.
So the prime example is the Tom Brady champ ticket, the Contenders auto number to 100, right?
Oh yeah,
like there was like, man, I hadn't seen one of those cards sell publicly for like 3 straight years, and all of a sudden, like literally, I think that in the last month, there's been one at each of the big auction houses, which is insane to think about, right? It's the same card being sold over and over again, and it's just the demand isn't there, right? You go from seeing this card, once in a great while, to all of a sudden there's 3 in 1 month at 3 different auction houses, right? It just goes to your point. It's crazy, right, to think about. And obviously, the more you see these cards, I say this, right, like, the people who post the same cards for sale all the time in their IG stories tend to struggle moving stuff, right? We're kind of seeing that now. Like it's the same shit over and over again. The super high end market. I'll talk Brady just because it's easier for me, right? Because I'm one of the Brady guys. The Bowman Chrome Refractor has taken a massive dip. What's one of the cards we see the most in auction houses? His rookie refractor. Contenders, the base auto and the champ tickets, the same deal. We see that shit all the time at these auction houses, right? Like that, there's only so many buyers for 6, 7-figure cards, right? We're talking less than 1% of the entire hobby, right, can afford this stuff, right? So when it pops up over and over again, the market just can't support it. And, we've seen massive drops on stuff like that. Steph Curry's rookie refractor, LeBron's rookie refractor, all that type of stuff. And, it sucks, but at the same time, like, it's all about when you get into stuff, right? So I talked a lot about how doing my inventory, I've lowered some cards, right? But there's also stuff that I've raised, right? So, it just cracks me up how people are like, oh, stuff's going to get back to pre-COVID prices or it already has, or it's going to go lower. I mean, I don't know what type of cards they're talking about, but I don't see it. So prime example, right? Tom Brady's Bowman Chrome rookie, PSA 10, right? Just the base Bowman Chrome, right? So what I've done, this has been like a 5 to 6 year in the making plan for me to get out of teaching and do this full time, right? So I've always kept detailed stuff about when I bought a card, what I paid for it, right? So, I was selling his Bowman Chrome PSA 10 rookies before COVID for in the $1,500 to $2,500 ballpark, right? Yeah, the card got to probably, I think it was between 20 and 25K at peak during COVID. It's still a 9 to 10K card, right? So like, yeah, if you paid 20 for one and now it's worth 10, yeah, it sucks, right? I feel for you, right? But like, if you get into stuff at the right time, you're still doing very well. Like, we got to keep it in perspective, right? Like, all you see is the downward arrow on charts, right? But, if I get into a Brady Bowman Chrome rookie right before COVID, right, I'm still fine. You know what I mean? So yeah, if you bought shit during peak and you just came into the hobby or whatever else, I'm upside down and stuff. Everybody is, right? But at the same time, there's cards I'm still doing really well on. And if I were to sell today, I'd still make a massive profit, compared to where things were before COVID. So I think that, got to keep it all in perspective. That's why I think, having stuff that you're going to play the long game with is so important, and not just, wheeling and dealing, the young prospects all the time. If you really love the hobby and you're in this for the long haul, make some long-term plays. And the National is a great place to do it. Bring some ammo and make some long-term plays. It's not just, listen, if you're doing this full-time, you're just about flipping the young. There are guys who do this full-time who only flip young guys. Like I'll guys who don't want any parts of Brady or Jordan or stuff like that. They want the young and up-and-coming guys, which it blows my mind in a sense, because that's not who I am. But at the same time, that they probably do well with it, right? But I just from a buyer standpoint, if I wasn't a dealer and I was buying stuff right now, I might buy some young prospect stuff to wheel and deal and have his trade bait and try to flip, right? But I want to have a stack of long-term play stuff. But that's just me. I love the hobby. I'm not going anywhere. I'll be in this hobby till I die. Right. So I always have a long-term outlook, but, it's not all, Debbie Downer stuff. Look at the Peyton Manning PMG sale. That's what sparked me in your conversation. That kind of sparked me coming on here. Right. Like, that's a card that sold during peak. It did an outrageous number of people going nuts. And now it just sold when the market shit and it went up. Right. Like there are rare pieces that don't pop up often that are still doing very well. But as a whole, of course, I'm not trying to come on here and say the market's great and stuff's going up. That's not what I'm trying to say. So I want to make that clear. It's just that, that Peyton Manning PMG sale just goes to show you, right? Like if you find a rare card that you want to hold long-term, there is data out there that's going to show that stuff will rise and will go up. It's not going to be a quick flip, right? You're not going to buy, like I tell people right now, if you want to get into Brady right now, it's not going to be a quick flip. He's not playing, right? He's not going to win the Super Bowl next year. He's not going to have a 500-yard passing game. He's not going to throw for 4 TDs, right? So if you're buying his stuff, you're going for the long haul, a long-term play. And where it's at right now, I think that, you can really feel comfortable. And I'm seeing that right now. Like I told you, back to his rookie cards. People feel a lot more comfortable getting into some of these bigger cards now because they're at a point where it's all right. I feel I'm not going to say this is the floor, but it kind of feels like we're there, if not getting there, if not. But we're definitely in a spot where people feel more comfortable making moves on stuff like that they didn't before, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And you definitely just threw out a ton of good stuff there. And so how do you decide then with your stuff, right? Because you're going to National, you do this for a living. You are literally going to the biggest event in the world for cards. How do you decide what you keep at home and what you are bringing? Because is it just going to be like the Brady stuff, the super, super rare stuff? Because in my mind, I'm thinking, well, that's why I'm going to Nationals to find the super rare stuff. So I'm hoping not everyone's keeping the super rare stuff at home.
Of course, right. So I always like to tell people, like, I'm very open and honest with people in terms of what I invest in and what I think is a good play long term. I'm not saying I'm right, but you can look at my Flickr, right, and you can see the stuff that I have marked PC and kind of see what I'm looking at and what I'm looking to keep long term. So for me, and actually, I'm not a teacher anymore, but I'm very much still a teacher with taking notes and having stuff. I had your exact question written down because I figured it would pop up, right? Like, how do I decide what's a good long term play? So for me, scarcity is a huge factor. I think that's common for anybody making a long-term play. I do have a Tom Brady Bowman Chrome PSA 10 rookie in my PC that I'm keeping. It's not going to be the national. I'm also into that card so cheap that I feel fully comfortable keeping it long-term. But I think that eventually that's going to be the 86 Flair Jordan of football 10, 20 years down the line. That's how I feel. Am I going to be right? I have no idea. It's never going to get to where Jordan prices are. I just think there's room to grow in that card. But for me, I often ask myself this question, how easy is this to replace if I wanted to get it back down the road? And if the answer is pretty easy, it's probably something I'm going to throw in my box, sprint to the national to put out. If the answer is semi-easy, I'll probably, if I got a stack of 10 cards that I think are semi-easy to replace, I'll probably pick the 5 I like the best. I'm a big aesthetics guy, the look of a card. I'm a big chunky patch guy, game use stuff. I love the value of game use stuff. Especially with all the player worn shit that you see now. What's going to happen when Fanatics takes over, we don't know. But I'm a big proponent and believer in game use stuff. I mean, Peyton Manning hasn't had a game use card, man. I think it's like 5 years. Tom Brady hasn't had a game use card in a product in 2 or 3 years. He has no game use Tampa Bay Bucks cards, right? So it's like that they've run out of this game use stuff, right? So I like hoarding that stuff. So for me, it's scarcity. It's how easy can I replace something? And if the answer is I can't replace it, it's going to be tough to move. But at the same time, I got one card I'm bringing with me. I'm not going to mention what it is. I'll save that for my live previews. But I won't be able to replace the card. But at the same time, it makes sense to me. All right, I'm into it for this amount. If I can get this amount, it makes sense to let it go. Especially now where I'm doing this to pay the bills versus just hoarding all Peyton Manning and Tom Brady cards, right? But in terms of what you're going to see from me, I'm going to have a variety of everything, right? I mean, I know you're proud of me. I've gotten a vintage now, right? So. I'll have a decent little vintage selection. Nothing huge. I got a decent mantle. I picked up that the 52 Bowman PSA 3. I think you saw that on my page. Nice little card, right? But you'll see more vintage stuff in like the 500 under range for me. I'll have a lot of basketball stuff. I'll have a good amount of Brady, obviously, Peyton. I'll have a ton of young quarterback stuff, a ton of Mahomes stuff. So I'm going to have a pretty good variety there. But it was tough to make some of these decisions in terms of what to bring. And honestly, I really truly try to price my stuff where the market is, but there's going to be some cards that either there's no comps or it's going to be like, all right. And I said this in my national live last year, you'll be able to pick out 5 cards that I have overpriced, and that's fine. Like I'm open. I had one card last year. I openly admitted to somebody had it overpriced. They still bought it because they'd only seen one other one. Right. But it's like, if there's certain stuff that I'm pulling out of the PC to bring to the show, and there's going to be a number on it where if I don't get close to my number, I'm just not going to move it. It's going to go back in the PC, and I'm fine with that, right? So like I said, there's stuff that I'm only breaking out literally once a year for this show, and that's been part of my process this week before we, 4th of July hits next week, and a lot of family stuff going on. I wanted to have this done before next week in terms of what do I want to bring from the PC to showcase at the show and potentially move. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm the same excited for the show would be an understatement. And me doing this PC purge has just fired me up even more, man, because it's so cool to go through your collection, look at your stuff, make those tough decisions, and feel good about where your PC is at. Like I'm not done with Brady yet, but I feel really good about where if I were to sell every single Peyton Manning card I bring to the National, which won't happen because I'm bringing 200, right? I would feel really good about where my PC is. And I want to get to that point with Brady too, hopefully done by Friday. But, I say to myself, all right, if I come back with nothing, Peyton, am I happy with my PC? And the answer is yes right now. So kind of got it where I want it to be as of now.
Oh man, that sounds good. And like you said, super excited for National. Can't wait to go there. Can't wait to see everyone, see all the cards, see all that good stuff. And you're set up with Mike MC Sports Cards, who is a friend of the show. He's an incredible guy. I mean, talk about one of the kindest, most humble guys you could meet in the hobby, right?
And just guy that does so many massive deals that's like it's nothing, right? Like it's just seeing him wheel and deal is definitely something cool you could, he could probably charge admission at his booth to watch some of the deals go down. The stuff that I've seen over the years, it's just cool. And the other guy was set up with Matt Sports Cards. Has some insane. He'll have some insane stuff there too, and he does some super high end wheeling and dealing too. So we're super excited for the show. There'll be a lot more promotion going on. So I'm just pumped up. And like you said, man, seeing everybody, right? Like, I have Instagram has been so good for me in terms of my business, right? But at the same time, making so many relationships, right? I get to see people that I talk to all the time once a year, and it's at the National, right? So super fired up for that, to see people and get deals done and just have a blast, man. It's just it's a hell of a week. I can't freaking wait.
Oh man, well, sounds good. I feel like I've been seeing you at quite a few of the bigger shows. I saw you at the Foxwood show, saw you at the Fenway show, and I'm sure I'll be bumping into you at National, man. So Kevin, before we wrap up, if anyone wants to reach out to you, if anyone wants to get a hold of you, check out your inventory, try to see if maybe they could strike a deal with you before National, anything like that, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah. So first off, I'm the Captain 37, DA Captain 37 on Instagram. That's the best way. Shoot me a DM. Much more responsive DMs these days now that I'm doing this full time. And my Flickr link is in my bio, so you can go on there and see everything I have available. So the only thing I'll say is there's stuff that's marked PC and there's stuff that's marked for sale for trade. It's marked PC, it's not going anywhere, because I've had, I've lit the candle, I've had the cocktails, I've sat down my PC and made tough decisions. That stuff's not going anywhere. But at the same time, what I'm going to do, I'm going to be going live every night for a week leading up to the show. I'm going to go live with my inventory fully priced and ready to go. I'm going to save all those videos on my page. So I'll have a night where I say, all right, I'm going live with all Tom Brady patches I'm bringing to the show. So I'll go live for 10 minutes, show it all off. Now I'm going live with all of my young quarterback inventory at the show. So you'll be able to see everything I'm bringing and line up deals. I did this the last two Nationals, and it's really been great because you can line up deal and people who are going to the National, whether it's the first time, whatever else, time is of the essence at the show. You don't realize how quick time flies at the show. So I would highly suggest if you can try to line some stuff up before the show, you can just say, hey, I'm going to get this from Kevin or John or Tim or whatever else. Got the cash, he's got the card, go, shake hands, done. Boom, you just all set. Now go to a different, because the show's huge. It's 30% bigger. I can't even wrap my head around the fact that this show is going to be bigger than it usually is. But I think lining up deals ahead of the show is in everybody's best interest. Plus, it gives you something to look forward to, right? Like I already walk in having, a couple cards that I want ready to roll and then I'm going to get, right? So I'll be showcasing the whole inventory. Literally every single card I'm bringing with me will be on my page in a live and a saved video, and you'll be able to see. So I'm pumped up, man. A lot of work to do on my end. Be a lot of very, very hectic, busy days, but I embrace it, man, because I'd rather be doing this than correcting papers. That's for sure.
Love to hear it, man. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for coming on. Can't wait to watch the IG page, see some of the stuff that you're pumping out ahead of National, man. Definitely look forward to it, and I'll be talking to you soon.
All right, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right.